I'm not saying that. I'm saying
having a problem with that one.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that no economy can survive without some notion of trust and
I don't
integrity
think you would
that
disagree
allows.
with that, right,
I'm sorry,
Kevin?
but this economy is really surviving. It's the number one economy on
Kevin,
earth.
I don't think you would disagree
for
with
200
You
years.
got 20% of the people in poverty.
Two men, completely different frameworks for what makes a country work, and one very uncomfortable question sitting right in the middle. If you're new here, this is Clear Record. Hit subscribe because we break down exactly what's being said and what's being avoided. Now, this panel was supposed to be about Trump's immigration comments. That's where it started, but it didn't stay there. It turned into something much older and much harder to resolve. A straight-up argument about what a successful economy actually means and whether the numbers tell the whole story. On one side, Kevin O'Leary, investor, entrepreneur, the guy who will always bring it back to the market. His position is clean and consistent. The system works. America is the #1 economy on earth, and that record speaks for itself. On the other side, Cornel West, and he's not interested in disputing the numbers. He's interested in what the numbers aren't saying. Morality, poverty, who actually ends up on the winning side of that successful system. And the whole thing gets lit by Donald Trump's rhetoric, comments about Ilhan Omar, comments about which countries produce people worth letting in. That's the match that starts the fire. Watch how this escalates. It doesn't stay polite for long.
Tonight, President Trump ratchets up the rhetoric against a familiar foe.
I love this Ilhan Omar, whatever the hell her name is, with the little turban. I love her. She comes in, does nothing but bitch. She's always complaining. She comes from a country where, I mean, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? But she comes to our country and she's always complaining about the Constitution allows me to do this. We ought to get her the hell out. She should get the hell out, throw her the hell out. She does nothing but complain.
And that's not all. He also revived an old remark that he made behind closed doors back in 2018 about shithole countries. Listen to this.
Why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime. The only thing they're good at is going after ships.
Now, I just want to remind you that when those comments were reported by CNN, by the Washington Post, by other outlets, the White House, Trump denied it. Let me just play that denial.
Did you see what various senators in the room said about my comments? They were amazed. No, I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person you have ever interviewed. That I can tell you.
I remember that well.
You were there? Yeah, I remember.
And there were some senators that were at the White House that day and came back and reported what he had said.
Dick Durbin and others.
Yeah,
Chuck Schumer was in that meeting.
Yeah, and that's the difference between the first term and the second term. The first term, you would deny, no, I've never said that.
Right.
You'd say it, but you wouldn't admit to saying it. Now, it's just out in the open.
It is out in the open. I'm thinking about what you were saying in that last segment because this feels like exactly what you were referencing.
No, it's true. And of course, 100 years ago, they were saying that about precious Irish brothers and sisters, Jewish brothers and sisters, Italian brothers and sisters,
please.
Polish. No. Samuel Beckett forever. But so that this is just a cycle. It's a human thing. You know, we're all human beings. We got to keep track of the organized hatred and weaponized greed and institutionalized indifference toward the weak and vulnerable. These moral and spiritual issues are perennial. Every generation has to come to terms with it. Thank God 100 years ago, voices that were moral and spiritual spoke out against it and called it for what it was. It's just hatred. This is revenge. This is xenophobia. But when you say that, you don't put them outside of the human race. They're still continuous with us. They're just the worst in us because that same hatred and same greed is inside of us. It's in the civil war and the battlefield of our own souls every day. We have to fight it every day. And if we don't die every day, as biblical text says, we got to die. We got to fight that greed and hatred every day. If you don't, you're going to slide down a slippery slope.
Isn't the American project supposed to be about treating people as individuals, not as representatives of where they came from, about who their parents were or whatever, but about who they are and what they can individually contribute to this country. However, what Trump is doing there is basically saying you are worthless if you come from a part of the world that he doesn't think has value. Is that really what we're doing in the United States of America?
That's not true in America. That's
no,
not true.
we in America, we do treat people as individuals and appreciate them as individuals. It's one of the greatest things about this country. On the other hand, and I am no fan of Ilhan Omar, and she is in a lot of deep doo-doo now because she is very tangled in this billion-dollar Somali Medicaid fraud scandal in Minneapolis, and she may be touched by this. And of course,
I haven't seen any evidence of her being connected to it, except for her being Somali.
Let me tell you why the check and balance. Let me tell you why
Abby, there is evidence.
This kind of rhetoric doesn't matter because the economy, the American economy, is based on entrepreneurship. I'm just one random investor. There are millions like me. We don't give a damn where you came from. We only ask, do you have executional excellence? I hire everybody, regardless of where their origination was or their race, religion, their skin color. I don't give a. It doesn't matter. If you can actually execute, you fit in an American company. And that exists today, regardless of who's the executive. I don't agree with those comments, but it's the economy that saves us all. The 200 years of success, the number one economy on earth, driven by every race and color and religion because of executional skills. Nothing else. That's it.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And in this moment, what is happening, the government policy right now, is that if you are from a list of countries, I think right now it's 19, but they want to expand it to 30, you're going in, you've gone through the whole immigration process. You're going in to take your oath of allegiance to the United States and become a citizen. And they are pulling you out of line. The executive director of an immigration organization says, we have 15 clients whose oath ceremonies have been canceled. They were fully vetted and approved. We have others whose interviews have been canceled. They're all from those 19 countries. How is that not punishing people for things that they themselves did not do, but that other people who happen to be from the same country might have done?
And this is all political. It's a distraction. I'll go back to your comment about the economy. People that were watching that rally, even the people standing behind, at the end of the day, all they care about is the economy. Can they pay their bills right now? Can they afford the squeeze that they are feeling every single day? Donald Trump doesn't like to tackle things that are difficult. Healthcare, inflation, tariffs, dealing with foreign countries. These are tough issues, policy issues. So what does he do? He makes fun of people. He goes after people, particularly women, and particularly women of color, which is just so offensive on so many levels that he goes after female journalists. He goes after members of Congress. You see him doing it with Nancy Mace, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm naming Republicans right now. It's a perpetual problem and pattern that he has, and it's a distraction from the economy, which he is failing on.
I do believe that people coming in from certain countries that have posed terrorist risks to us in the past should be more adequately vetted. And if listing the countries and saying people coming in from these countries must be more thoroughly researched, more thoroughly verified before they're admitted to this country, I have no problem with that because the president is also responsible for the national security of this country.
But the thing is, though, you see, that even all the gold in the world, no matter how many golden calves you have, you can't have an economy unless you're also rich in the things money can't buy. Integrity, honesty. You can't even have a contract if you're dealing with gangsters. You can't even have a relationship if you're dealing with thugs. You can't have a capitalist economy without some notion of contract with people that you engage in, you have some trust in. That's the kind of stuff money can't buy.
Businesses are judged by those
money
rules
can't buy
every
that.
day.
That's right, rule of law.
They're judged by, if you are an immoral issuer, and you don't believe in your customers and you do things that are not right with them, you get canceled in 2 seconds.
But even your own partners in business, if you can't trust them, if not persons of integrity, honesty.
That's why the economy works. It's very transparent.
But there's a spiritual and moral dimension of that that's not reducible to just having money.
That's why you're at the table.
Excuse me, you're telling me you can live without money?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
having a
that,
problem with that one.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that no economy can survive without some notion of trust and
I don't think you
integrity
would
that
disagree
allows.
with that, right,
I'm sorry,
Kevin?
but this economy is really surviving. It's the number one economy
Yeah, but
on
Kevin,
earth.
I don't think you would
has
disagree
been for
with
200
Kevin.
You
years.
got 20% of the people in
Kevin-
poverty too.
It's a perpetual problem and pattern that he has, and it's a distraction from the economy, which he is failing on.
Once the exchange settles, one thing becomes pretty clear. This was never really about Trump. His comments were the trigger, but the fight underneath was about something much deeper. Watch what O'Leary does throughout the whole conversation. Every time the discussion moves towards something uncomfortable, inequality, poverty, who gets left out, he pulls it back to the same place. The economy works. America is number one. Money flows here. That's his anchor, and he returns to it constantly. West's move is different. He doesn't challenge the headline figure. He doesn't say the economy isn't large or that it hasn't been productive. What he does is introduce a number O'Leary hasn't accounted for. 20% of people in poverty. That one line lands differently because it's not an attack on O'Leary's argument from outside. It's a crack running through the middle of it. You can't hold up the same system as proof of success while a significant portion of the people living inside it are struggling. That's the tension West keeps bringing back to the surface. There's something else worth watching in this exchange. Every time the panel starts moving toward the harder questions, affordability, healthcare, what people are actually feeling day to day, the conversation drifts back to Trump's rhetoric. And that's not just a coincidence of the discussion. Multiple people on the panel say it directly. The outrage, the controversy, the constant targeting of specific individuals. It functions as a distraction. It pulls attention away from policy questions that are harder to deflect and harder to spin. So you end up with this gap. O'Leary is pointing at the scale of the system and saying it works. Others are pointing at the people inside that system and asking why it doesn't feel that way for so many of them. Numbers versus lived reality. Growth versus how that growth is distributed. Success as an aggregate figure versus success as something that reaches people broadly. O'Leary doesn't really close that gap. When West raises the poverty figure, O'Leary's response is to restate the scale of the economy, not to address the specific contradiction West put on the table. That's the moment the debate turns. Not because the economy argument is wrong on its own terms, but because West demonstrates that a large economy and a fair one are not automatically the same thing. The system producing wealth doesn't settle the question of who that wealth is actually reaching, which leaves the real question sitting right there, unresolved. If a system generates enormous wealth but leaves a significant share of its population behind, what exactly are we measuring when we call it success? That's not a rhetorical question. It's a genuinely open one. Drop your answer in the comments because this conversation isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's getting louder.